were going to Connecticut to a friend's wedding on May 18th, and it's my best friend's wedding, and I had asked Mary to come with me, actually it was back in January, right? Okay. And
I said yes.
She said yes, and so the whole plan was this. I figured if by May everything was going well, then I'd ask her to marry me back in Connecticut or up in New Hampshire, up in the mountains. That's my original plan, was to propose to her. Up on a mountain.
If everything was going well.
Right.
Yeah.
If everything was going well by that point, we weren't pulling each other's hair out.
Right, right.
Anyways, it was the week prior to, or actually the weekend prior to when we were supposed to leave. We were supposed to leave on a Friday afternoon. And I was talking with my parents on the phone, and I happened to mention them. Well, I didn't just happen to mention them, but I realized that I needed to mention them, that I was going to ask Mary to marry me. And they thought it was a great idea. And they said...
It's a wonderful idea.
Yes. And they said, are you going to ask her parents? Or have you asked her parents yet? And I said, well, no. I said I was going to ask you first, and then I was going to go and ask her parents. Then I realized that I only had 5 days to ask them, so...
Oh, no.
So that Saturday afternoon, I got in the car and I went over to Kailua. And I got there around 1 in the afternoon, and both Mary's mom and dad were in the backyard, digging in the weeds and doing typical parent things. And it took me forever. Actually, what I did, it was the day before Mother's Day, so I went and I got some flowers, and I brought them over to Mary's mom for Mother's Day, and she was real happy with those. So I spent a lot of the day kind of following them around the yard as they were doing their work. And there was no good time to ask them. As you can imagine, there's no good time to bring up a subject like, I want to marry your daughter. So throughout the afternoon, I learned Morse code from her dad. I learned about the rest of the family from her mom. Finally, we were in the kitchen. I had drank about 6 or 7 glasses of water from the refrigerator because my throat kept getting too dry. And Mary's mom had walked into the kitchen with a big pile of books in her hands, and she was going to go to the library to drop the books off. And she was just getting ready to walk out the door.
It took you forever to get them in the same room, right?
Yeah, it took them forever. Each of them were in different parts of the house, so I was walking between one and the other, one and the other. Finally, I said, stop, you can't go anywhere. I have something I have to talk with you about. And they both kind of looked a little concerned, you know, and I was leaning against, if you can picture the kitchen, I was leaning against the kitchen sink, and they were both standing at their end of the kitchen. I was getting more and more nervous as I was bringing up the subject. Finally, I had to sit down because I was just getting ready to pass out. But anyways, finally I asked them, I said, I'd like to marry Mary, and I'd like your blessing. And
first you told them that you love me.
Right.
Yeah.
And so her dad just sat there with this big grin on his face, and her mom just started jumping up and down and screaming, tried to pick me up. And I said, well, I guess this means it's yes. And it was. And then she tried to pick me up again a couple of times. And it was real fun. It took me about 3 hours to do that, so that was the whole Saturday. So anyways, I told both her mom and dad that they were not to tell anybody what I told them, because nobody else knew. And then I was planning on proposing to her back in Connecticut. And this was going to be like a week and a half later. So her mom was going crazy. And,
bursting at the seams.
Right. So she used the flowers as a what's the word for that?
As an excuse why Rich had come by to say hi.
Yeah, that's right. And why she was so happy.
Right.
So,
right. Yeah.
So Sunday I get the schedule for Mary on her days of the week. Monday night she wasn't working. Tuesday night.
Monday night you were invited for dessert at 7:30.
Right. Monday night she wasn't working. Tuesday night, Wednesday night she was, and Thursday night we both knew we had to pack for the trip, and then Friday we had to go. Because Mary's mom and dad were so excited about the news, I decided that it would be much more fair for everybody that I propose before we leave. So I realized that I had to ask her on Monday. That was the only day that I could do it, if I wanted to do it the way I wanted to do it.
Before we flew.
Before we flew. And to do it night. So I worked Sunday, all night Sunday. I was up all day Monday. Monday around 4 o'clock I got out. I ran to Pearl Harbor's PX, and I bought this ring right here.
See?
Okay. Anyways, this is her birthstone, the garnet. And it's got 2 little diamonds on both sides.
It's beautiful.
And I was already planning on getting a diamond ring, but I couldn't have it at the time that I wanted to ask her to marry me. So I had to use a surrogate, and that's what I decided to use.
Isn't it pretty?
So I just got home, it was about 4:30, and I phoned Mary on the phone. I said, Mary, I said, it's such a beautiful day. I said, let's just go on a picnic instead of going for dessert at your house, or we can go for dessert later. And I'm holding the ring in my hand, and I'm speaking on the phone, and she says, no. He said, what do you mean no? It's a great day. It'll be a great day for a picnic. It's beautiful, it's sunny. She says, no. And I'm like, oh, how come? And she says, well, I've got some bills to pay and nursing school things, and I got to bring something over to my mother. And she's just kind of making up some stuff. And we went back and forth for about 10 minutes. And me saying what a beautiful day it is and how I really want to go on a picnic. We both got more and more emphatic as the time went on. And finally, I was starting to get desperate because all I could hear was these words, no, no, no. And, and I knew that this was the only time I could propose to you and do it in the sun and the way I wanted to do it.
I had planned a surprise party for Rich's birthday about 3 weeks before this, and his birthday was on May 11th, and our schedules were such that there was absolutely no time to do it before his birthday, so I decided to have it on the 13th, on Monday. And I thought, well, it's good because he probably won't guess since it's after his birthday. Anyway, so that was Monday night, and that's why I had invited Rich over for dessert at 7:30 Monday. So 30 people are due at my house at 7 p.m. on Monday, and Rich is to come over at 7:30 to have dessert. So I get this call at 4:30 in the afternoon from Rich. He's completely distraught, and I have to see him right now. It was the absolute worst timing you can imagine. It was just the worst timing of, of anything. You know, I'd worked all night Sunday night. I was supposed to be in bed Monday. I was up all day doing the food and everything. I was right in the middle of it. It was just awful. I was thinking, my gosh, I just can't believe this. You know, at first I thought you knew, and you were trying to test me out, like, oh, let's go for a picnic. Oh, let's see what she says about that, you know. So I told Rich, I said, you know, Kim just called in tears because Jim called her, that's her husband, and there was something really wrong with him. He was really upset about something. She didn't know what it was, but she was all upset, and she was on her way home to talk to me. So I said, Rich, Kim's on her way. As soon as I talk to Kim and get her settled, I'll be right over. He says, okay, fine. And he sounded so much better. I was like, okay, great. Okay, that's good. Fortunately, Kim walked in the door about 5 minutes later. I said, Kim, I told her everything. And I said, I need you to, you know, to take over for me and do everything. So I showed her where all the party hats, all the horns, where all the food and everything, you know. And she's like, okay, Mary, don't worry. I've got it all under control. Don't worry. You just go, take care of Rich, and we'll be fine. I'm like, great. Phew. Thank goodness. So I called Mom. Mom, the most awful things happened. Can you come over early to help out? She's like, sure, sure, sure. So, excuse me. I'm on my way to Rich's. And I was thinking the worst. Rich sounded so bad on the phone. I thought, for sure, it had to be one of two things. The guys just had their HIV test a couple weeks before in the Army. I thought, for sure, he's got to be positive. I mean, he sounded so awful on the phone. He's probably dying, you know. And either that or one of his patients died, or he lost his medical license, something really kind of awful. So, get to Rich's house, and he looks pretty preoccupied, and I hold his hand, and you know, his hand is normally nice and warm and dry. Well, his hand was white, totally white, and freezing cold, and kind of clammy. And I just look at his hand, I'm like, Rich, look at your hand. Whatever it is, it must be really serious, huh? And he says, let's take a drive. I'm like, okay. So we get in the car, and we're driving like 45 miles an hour on the H2, which is kind of unusual. And he looks really preoccupied, you know. And I was just getting more and more nervous. I thought I knew for sure what it was. It was just something really, really awful. And I'm like, sweetie, whatever it is, don't worry. I still love you. I won't leave you. We'll work through it. It'll come out okay. Don't worry. Okay, that's your turn.
Okay. And this is really interesting because all the time, when the time she got to my house, she looked really preoccupied too. And I thought she was really worried about some, you know, whatever Kim was going on. She told me when she got to my house that Jim was okay, but they still weren't sure what was going on, and that Kim had kind of pulled herself together. And when we were walking out the door from my house and we were getting ready to get in the car, she turned to me and she said, I think I know what you're gonna tell me, and I don't like it. So now I'm getting very nervous, and I'm saying, oh my gosh, either she thinks I'm going to break up with her and she's mad at me for that, or she knows that I'm going to propose to her and she doesn't like the way I'm getting her to come out to propose to her. So now I'm like in a catch-22. I'm like, gosh, I want to propose to her and make it the best day of our lives, and now she's mad at me. And that's kind of what I thought. So we're in the car, and it's exactly the way Mary said. We're driving along, and we're holding hands. My hands are wet as they can be, and I can't begin to tell her what I'm going to ask her, because I knew that as soon as I started talking about us and our relationship, that I would just blow it and just ask her to marry me right away. So I had to be quiet. I couldn't say anything.
Which made it worse.
Which made it worse for her. So all along the way to the Schofield Barracks is where I was going to driving us. We were going to go up to this mountain pass called the Coley Pass that overlooks the ocean on the western side of the island. As we're driving all the way up, she's holding my hands and saying, you know, I'm there for you, I love you no matter what it is. And I figured she knew that I was going to propose to her, and she was telling me that it was going to be easy. You know, she was making it easy for me, saying, I'll be there for you forever, it doesn't matter. And I'm going, great, she's trying to make it easy for me now. Which was really nice.
And you're disappointed because I knew, right?
Yeah, and I was kind of disappointed because you knew, and you were kind of smiling, although we both had these nervous smiles on our faces. And I kept saying, it's really not that bad.
Yeah.
And so all the way up, she's giving me this testimonial to our relationship that everything's going to work out. Well, we finally get up to the Coley Pass. It's about a 20-mile ride, I'd say. By the time we got up there, it was about 6:30 in the afternoon on Monday, and the sun was starting to set. It was kind of low in the sky. It was very windy, and we were both actually, I think I was dressed in this outfit, as a matter of fact. So we got out of the car, and it was kind of funny because I had everything planned the way I wanted it to be. I had the ring in my little ditty bag, so she didn't know where it was. And I had hid a rose, one solitary red rose, in my trunk of my car. Well, whenever we go out walking and stuff, Mary doesn't like to keep her pocketbook in my car. She likes to put it in the trunk. So she says, well, can you open up the trunk and so I can put the bag in there? And I said, oh no, now I'm really gonna blow, because she's gonna see this solitary red rose in there. It's gonna wonder what's going on. So I picked up the car, the hatchback, and threw her bag in. She never saw the rose at all, and I was okay. Okay, as now we're starting to walk up this kind of dirt path. It's extremely steep. And both of us had like sandals on. We're not made to walk through the woods with, let alone go up a mountainside. And as we're walking, I'm starting to tell her my story. So I figure this will be great. As we walk up the 50 or 60 feet up, we'll get to the climax and the top of the hill, and I'll pop the question.
I was really scared because I didn't want to hear whatever it was, because I knew it was so awful. But I knew, I obviously had to. And this is going to sound really awful. Like for a fleeting minute, and this is just very fleeting. As soon as it entered my mind, it left again because it was so absurd. But for a fleeting moment, I thought, oh my gosh, we are going to the top and we are going to jump off together because it's so awful and he wants to die. I'm like, no, he wouldn't do that. That's crazy. I was just really scared.
As we're ascending the mountain now, I start telling Mary that I have a secret. And I've had a secret for a couple of weeks now, and I've started to tell some people, and I didn't tell them who knew the secret, only her parents and my parents, that I had a secret that I wanted to let her in on, and that it was very difficult to have a secret and not tell her, because she's the one, most of all, who I wanted to talk to about it. And she knew I had the secret too, but she had no idea what the secret was. So as we're going up the mountain, I start talking about our relationship and how long we've been going out. Finally, we get to a couple of different tiers. One level looks out over Schofield Barracks and the rest of the island. It's really not that beautiful, but it's a pretty sight. And she says, well, can you tell me here, or can I guess here? And I said, yeah, let me guess. And I said, no. I'm glad she didn't guess, because it would have been terrible. I said, no. We kept walking, finally got to another point, and she said, well, how about here? No, it can't be here. And we just kept walking. Anyways, we get to the top, and basically the path goes away. It makes a big sea loop, and we're right above the road that we had driven up. It was about 60 feet above. And it overlooks a beautiful ocean and this huge valley overlooking the Waianae coast. And the sun was kind of setting, the wind was blowing, and that's kind of where got my courage up. Actually, it was very easy to ask her because at this point she'd already given me a huge testimonial that she'd stick around with me no matter how
Awful it was.
horrible the news was going to be. So I got to the point, I told her that I loved her and that I wanted to marry her. And then I dropped to one knee with her hair blowing in the wind. I said, "Will you be my wife forever?" And of course, Mary's reaction was, She had no idea I was going to ask this. Her mouth hanging into the ground. She just went, oh, 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 oh. And I think I said, well, a couple of times.
I don't know what I was thinking. I have no idea what was going through my mind. I can just remember feeling like after all that those awful things going through my mind and everything, you know, I was exhausted because I had worked the night before. I was excited about the party, and now I was scared to death about the awful thing he was going to tell me that was going to change our entire life, whatever it was. And now he wants to marry me. I mean, happiness, total happiness, but I was just so shocked. It was just, I don't know what I was feeling. It was kind of like, and I think it was a good 15 seconds before I could gather what thoughts I had. And I said, yes, I would love to marry you. Yeah. And he picked me up and he twirled me around, and I thought for sure we were going to go right over the side of the cliff because it's this little area, 10 by 10. And we were swinging around, and we were so happy. We just, yep. and then we were just talking like, my gosh, I can't believe we get to spend the rest of our lives together. Wow, wow, wow. Yep. We were so excited.
And then I gave you the ring.
Oh yeah, then he gave me the ring.
The ring, and we talked for a little bit longer, and then we realized that it was almost 7 o'clock, and we had to get down to get to the phone. So we said, we better go, and it was cold actually at the time too. So we ran down, got down to the bottom of the mountain. I gave her her rose as we got her, when we got her bag out of the car. So we're in the car now, we're driving down, we're all bubbly and happy, and so we get down to the bottom,
shocked.
in shock.
Shocked and overwhelmed is what I was.
But I was much more relieved. I felt very comfortable then.
That's good.
Okay, so my horrendous time was done. So we stopped at the gas station at the bottom of the hill so Mary could call her roommate Kim. I had to go to the bathroom because I had a sympathetic discharge.
I'm still very nervous about the party. I'm wondering, is everyone there? You know, are we going to make it back in time? My gosh, we're at Schofield Barracks. We're supposed to be there at 7:30. You know.
Okay, so I get out of the bathroom after I drank like what 7 glasses of water before you came.
And I had called Kim when Rich was in the bathroom. I said, "What's going on?" And she said, "Mary, everyone's here. It's great." She said, "Where are you?" I said, "We're at Schofield Barracks. We're on our way home. We'll be there." It was like 10 after 7, I think.
Okay. So now, be mindful that I have no idea what's going on now. Finally, I thought that we had already called the dessert off, so we knew that we didn't have to go get the dessert. I had called Ron, left a message on his machine, and told him that something was up, and I'd forget dessert tonight.
Right.
So that was fine. I think I just hit the mic. That's okay. So we're in the car, and I told Mary, I said, well, let's go visit your mom and dad, because this is one of the main reasons I wanted to propose to her, so her parents could share in this excitement. And she said, nah, let's go see Kim and Jim first. Okay, so we're heading back to her house. And okay, that's right. So we get to her house, we parked, we walked up to the house, and everything was really dark. And Mary usually says, hi, Kim, we're on our way up. But this time she was screaming, we're here, Kim! And I thought that was a little uncustomary for her. So we walked up the stairs, up to the landing where the door is, and the shades were pulled, and it was dark. And it just seemed strange, and I didn't understand why. It didn't make too much sense. I thought something was going on. So we knocked at the door, and nobody comes. Nobody is answering. Finally, I pulled out my key to try to put it in the keyhole, and Mary grabs it from my hand. She goes, no, it's okay. Let them come to the door. And that was a little weird too. And then I said, well, maybe there's something going on between Kim and Jim or something. I didn't know. So then finally, Kim opens the door, and she goes, where have you guys been? And she was kind of acting a little squirrely, I thought. And the only light that was on was the overhead light in the hallway. Everything else in the house was dark. And I thought that was weird too. But again, nothing's clicking. So we come in the hallway, we kind of have a little bit of banter, I guess, between the three of us, saying not much anything. And Kim walks into the living room. I'm right behind Kim, I follow, and Mary's right behind me. And all of a sudden, I'm looking, the living room is completely dark, except I see some shadows of some people. And I thought that was a little weird. All of a sudden, the lights flick on. I hear all these people yell "surprise" and then start blowing horns. And at that point, my knees just felt really weak. I kind of leaned against the back of the wall and just was going, "Oh my God!" And I think that's all I said for like the first minute or so.
And you know, I was expecting all this, of course, but it was such a surprise. Everybody was there. The place was absolutely packed with people, and it was just so great. It was so great. Everybody had their party hats on. Everybody had a horn. It was just so fun. It was great. And I thought I was going to pass out. I just leaned against the wall and I was looking around. I'm just like, I can't believe it. I can't believe it, you know.
So anyways, a minute goes on with everybody blowing these horns. We couldn't get a word in edgewise.
Oh, and Jim came over and put your party hat on. And
that's right. Give me a big red smack or kiss. Somebody put a horn in my hand, which I couldn't blow because I was laughing too hard. Finally, the raucous comes down and everybody's quiet just for a second. And I figured this is the greatest opportunity. I couldn't believe it, so I said, I'd like to introduce my fiance. And then everybody starts blowing the horns again and screaming and yelling. So it was a pretty incredible night for both of us.
Pretty wild.
It was interesting.
Happiest day of our lives.
Yeah, it was really interesting because it has such meaning for both of us, because basically at 4 o'clock in the afternoon we both had planned probably, you know, a huge thing for the other one. And we both had to convince each other to trust one another that so we could pull both of our things off.
Yeah.
So she trusted me enough to come out so I could propose to her, and I trusted her enough so she could give me a surprise party. It was great. So it worked out great.